Oh, hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman. Welcome to the 2024 Halloween special. I have my Mr. Mephisto gear on tonight and an interesting show in store for you. So let us begin. So tonight I'm drinking cursed wine. And what makes this cursed? Well, it was created by a client of my wife's 5 years ago. It has not been properly stored, so it tastes mustier than an antique book smells. And yeah, hopefully it doesn't kill me. So tonight we're going to be looking at some scary, creepy watches. Some watches from horror movies, and I'll be discussing my horror movie recommendations. Most of these movies are pretty recent, but the last one is an exception to that. So be sure to stick around for that one. It's kind of pertinent to something that recently happened in my life. Hopefully I don't give away any spoilers as I talk about those movies, but no promises. So when we get to that section, tread with caution. Alright, so let's look at some scary watches, shall we? The first one is an HYT Skull watch, and you may have encountered HYT. This brand does liquid-filled time indicators. So as the tube fills up with colored liquid, in this case red, of course, where the liquid is at on the dial tells you the time, the hours or the minutes. And this piece is pretty interesting. I do like the red liquid. I think it's fitting for the skull watch. The designs on the skull look great. It's intriguing how they had to run lines from the outer edge of the dial toward the center so that you could actually tell what indicator the liquid is pointed at. But I think, for me, the coolest part of this watch is the skull's mouth. So those crazy radiator-looking things that serve as the skull's teeth of sorts are part of the movement. They're the pieces that push the liquid through the tubes. Yeah, these liquid watches are pretty crazy. This one has a 51mm case on it, and a crazy price tag to go with it. These watches retail for $120,000. A Blog to Watch did a write-up of this piece, and I've put a link to that in the show notes below. And I also found a reference to it in a list of skull watches on Keep the Time. Most of the other watches on that list were not so impressive. This one actually kind of stood out. However, the next watch on my list comes from that particular article. So this is the Ballast Jolly Roger watch. And with this piece, they also did some fun stuff with the skull's teeth, making it skeletonized just where its mouth is. Around the edge of the dial are minute markers. There are no hour markers on this one, just 1 through 60 around the edge of the dial. It's done in a rose gold color. The dial is black and the skull is also rose gold. And I put this one on the list because the teeth that I mentioned look so gnarly. Like just a bunch of watch movement parts that are visible through its mouth make it look like it has a mouthful of metal teeth that have been jacked up in a fight or something. These are actually limited edition watches. They're limited to 150 pieces. They have 42mm cases on them. And they sell for about $450. Alright, this next watch I know nothing about. It just showed up in an image search, but look at how creepy that looks. It's just a pair of floating eyes staring right out at you. And those spirals of color around the eyes just make it look all the creepier. Yeah, this watch is unnerving. And speaking of unnerving, that's why I chose this next watch. So this watch is the Thomas Pressure double axis tourbillon. And this is a really wild watch. It's actually pretty cool looking. But the reason that I chose it is, look at how that tourbillon is just floating in limbo. It's just in the middle of nowhere, in the center of the case, the dial, display, whatever you want to call that space there, just all by itself, completely and utterly alone. The last watch that I have for the creepy watches list tonight was mentioned in a blog to watch, and there's links to all of these in the show notes below. But this one was interesting because I found other variants of this watch when I was searching around online, but not this particular one. And so these are watches that have a dial that's sort of designed to look like the surface of the moon. However, this particular piece is so creepy because there are skeletons and bits of bone half buried in the moon dust. Like a bunch of humans hurled through space and crashed onto the moon, not in suits or anything else, and just died there and decayed to bone. I feel like the potential story behind this dial is the creepiest part of this watch. How did those human bones get on the moon? Was there a moon mission and someone went on a murderous rampage and just threw the bodies out of the ship? Did ancient humans actually go to the moon and die and become skeletons? I mean, that's so crazy. Who was in the boardroom and thought about doing this dial? Okay, let's look at some watches in horror movies. And this comes from an article that I found on The Watch Village. And the first piece that they mention was from the movie It Part 2, and it's a Rolex Datejust. And they state, seen being worn by James McAvoy in It Chapter 2. If you're not familiar with this horrifying film, it's a modern-day remake of the original 90s It movie, which features an evil clown possessed by a demon that for some reason terrorizes and murders children. I thought it was an alien, actually. Wasn't it actually an alien that would disguise itself weirdly as a creepy clown to lure in children, which is bizarre, but it's an alien, so it doesn't know any better? I don't know if their write-up is correct. But we can see some screenshots of the watch in action, and it looks pretty good. Next up we have Ghostbusters. Not much of a horror movie, I guess so, just because has ghosts in it and stuff, but yeah. In this film, all of the Ghostbusters wear a Seiko M516 voice note, specifically for its audio recording feature, which of course you need if you're hunting ghosts. I mean, ask Zach Bagans. I mean, you probably also need an Ovilus ghost box, some machines that draw weird dancing stick figures that just look goofy and bizarre, and thousands of dollars of other equipment to make the ghosts talk. I love me some ghost adventures. And the last one I have comes from the movie Orphan, which was a really creepy movie. So messed up. And the watch in this movie is the IWC Portugueser chronograph. In the film, the father of the family, which the film revolves around, who is played by Peter Sarsgaard, can be seen wearing an IWC Portugueser chronograph. The watch seems to have a leather strap, a white dial, and a steel case. It's hard to put a price on this watch as there is such a large price range, as I'm not able to find out the exact model worn in the film. I completely relate to that. That's why I have to rely on other articles where people who are better at identifying watches in movies have done so for me. I have tried taking screenshots and zooming in, and I am just terrible at identifying watches in movies. I'm really good at staring at those watches the entire time the movie's on, much to my wife's entertainment, but identifying the watches, not so much. Alright, so now we've arrived at the horror movie recommendations section of this video. And like I said, I tried to pick movies that were from this year or within a year or so. And all of them are movies that I've seen. Do I remember everything about them? Not so much. I watch so many horror movies. Yeah. There was one on this list that we'll get to that I could not remember the details of it. Sort of remember it, but not entirely. So the first movie on my list is Long Legs. There was a lot of hype around this movie, and it was definitely a weird movie. I mean, it has Nicolas Cage in it, and he's always weird. And I feel like he's at the top of his weird game in this movie. I mean, there were some scenes where his character was barely watchable. It was just cringy and weird. I found him more cringy than creepy, but maybe that's just me. I mean, he was creepy, but yeah. Be prepared for some weirdness with this movie. For me personally, I don't think it really lived up to the hype. It was a weird movie, but yeah, I mean, this next movie is not so much a horror, and I agree that they kind of screwed up the first one as well by showing the creature too soon. The movie would have been much more disturbing if you had no idea what this thing was that was picking people off until the very end of the movie. But then again, I think mystery like that is what makes most movies creepier. But this next movie on my list is A Quiet Place 2, Day 1. And I feel like this was more like a human story, a story of relationship, a story of pain and sadness, more so than a horror movie. And it's definitely a tearjerker. There were some scenes that were just brutal in this movie. But it's really well executed and just an intriguing plot. I think they did pretty well with a second film. A lot of times, follow-up films are not so great. This one was pretty good. Okay, with this next movie, there's going to be spoilers, so be aware of that. Not spoilers in this movie, but about a movie I'm going to mention in conjunction to it. So my next movie is Salem's Lot, which is a recent remake of an old Stephen King movie, and I actually liked this one. I don't disagree with the people who tear it to shreds on YouTube. They make valid points, but it was a fun vampire movie. However, I do agree with one YouTuber that I saw who said if you want to watch a good vampire show, watch Midnight Mass. Now, when I watched that show, I had no idea what it was about at all, and that's the way to go into it. But if you're watching this, I spoiled that. But they did such a great job in that show of keeping everything a huge mystery. Like, you have no idea what's going on until the last few episodes where it really starts becoming clear, but you still don't know where the show's gonna go with it all. My wife and I just rewatched that series, limited series, and it was really good the second time through. I picked up on things that I missed the first time, and seeing them not cheat in the mystery of it all was great. The next movie on my list is Stop Motion, and this movie is something. I definitely recommend this movie. This was crazy. It melds standard movie stuff with stop motion bits here and there in the movie. And parts of it remind me a lot of Tools videos, just real visceral and just wild. The progression of the stop motion characters throughout this movie is wild. Wild. The next movie is Hellhole. Single word. There's also a Hellhole movie, and I don't think I've seen that one. But this one was really well done. The cinematography and stuff was great. It's a Polish movie, and it's about some monks who encounter all kinds of crazy, evil, satanic, supernaturally stuff. Some of the monster designs and visual effects were odd, and they did things that you see in other movies, like The Conjuring. Some of the scary visual stuff that The Conjuring does over and over again, this movie did with a twist. But this was a pretty good movie. Next up I have You'll Never Find Me. And this movie was so good until it wasn't. So for 90% of this movie, you are completely in the dark as far as where this is going to go. They did such a good job of building a tense, stressful atmosphere in this movie because you know something bad is going to happen and you're just waiting for it to happen, but you have no idea what it is exactly. Like, are they going to mess with our heads and have the unexpected be the horrible thing that happens here and not the obvious low-hanging fruit? Sadly, they kind of went with the low-hanging fruit on this one. I loved it, and then didn't like it at all at the end. Yeah, I wish that they would have messed with the audience. Make the audience think that it's going to go one way, because obviously that's the way it's going to go, but then turn it on its head and make it go a completely different direction. But they didn't do that. They took it the exact direction that you were afraid it was going to go. But the atmosphere, the tension, everything about the way they did this, up until you know what's going on, was so great. Right up until that point, it was a brilliant movie. After that, pretty pedestrian. The next movie is Abigail. And Abigail is a wild, wild ride. I encountered this watching some horror movie recommendation on YouTube, and it did not disappoint. This movie, you have to see it. So cool. Like, go into it not really knowing anything about it, just watch the movie. Abigail. Okay, so these next two movies definitely go in amongst my all-time favorite horror movies. These two movies are just absolutely phenomenal. The first one is Late Night with the Devil. This movie is so much fun. This is the kind of horror movie where you invite friends over, you make popcorn, maybe cocktails, turn the lights off, turn the volume up, and just enjoy. It takes place in the 70s on the set of a late night talk show that's struggling to try and be the next Carson. And for most of the movie, it's pretty tame. But then things start to get weird. And then stuff happens. Stuff definitely happens. Yeah. Absolutely watch this movie if you haven't yet. I've already seen it twice. I'm probably going to purchase a hard copy of it because I'm old school. I like having hard copies of movies. And I'm probably going to watch this every fall, at least. The next movie on my list is Evil Dead Rise. I am a huge fan of the Evil Dead franchise. Evil Dead 2 is so great. So great. I love where they actually strapped cameras to bicycles and rode them through the woods to get the effects that they got there. The Evil Dead series is so cool. Like, these movies just dive right into the craziness within the first few minutes of the movie. And this one keeps that up, as well as the insane amount of gore. I mean, just blood flying everywhere, filling up entire spaces. This one captured the essence of the original two movies so well, and yet a little bit less campy, but still had that campy feel. It was just a perfect balance and such a great movie. Oh, I've seen this one a few times and we'll be watching it more. And the last one on my list is The Exception. This is an older movie. However, my wife and I recently went to Paris, and as we were scrolling through the movies, my wife saw the Eiffel Tower upside down and was like, we need to watch this. I had already seen it, but I watched it so long ago, I didn't really think anything of it, didn't pay attention to actually where it took place or what it was about. But this movie is As Above, So Below. And this takes place in the illegal catacombs under Paris, which we had just done a tour of the legal catacombs and heard about the illegal ones and saw photos of some of the things that have happened there. Crazy banquets that have been thrown in the illegal catacombs, raves that have been thrown there, and horror stories of people being led down there by tourists who rob them and leave them there. People who've gotten lost and died down there. So this movie was wild. And if you're remotely claustrophobic, that'll make it even scarier for you. It was such a wild plot to this. Yeah, it's twisty and curvy and just keeps you wondering the entire movie. Such a great movie. And the end is phenomenal. Next time I go to Paris, I'm going to try and find where that ending took place. When you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about, where they can see Notre Dame in the distance. I'm going to find that one thing in that movie. So watch it and you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm going to find that. So this has been a great Halloween special this year. I look forward to next year's, and thanks for watching.